First, we need to sign the statement, the contract first, saying that you're agreed to be filmed, and that the documentation will be used in exhibition. Okay. Shall we?
So, jetzt kommt Is this a kind of story, or is this?
So it's a walk of.
Yeah, but this gives a sequence, I guess.
Like, yeah, it's a sequence, but like a Trajansäule in Rome, it's meant to see as a continuous thing, not the upward movement. There are soldiers with weapons, and there are people carrying stuff, like a prison scene. Because this they will look like wearing prison people.
Or is that?
All over. But I think it's really more ornamental kind of thing, nothing of use.
It's like the
It's poetry. It's what? You know this Chinese? Pu'er. It's like put in the ground for a long time, so it's fermented and shortened.
It looks like something from a tree, like I would have thought this.
What kind of tree?
I thought it was wood or some sort of part of the...
To smell it, because every object has a different smell. Depends on the curator willing to preserve it. Because to me it looks like it's like kind of a plan. Plan? Like a plan. Like this comes first, then the second. Like because of the numbers. Yeah, because I don't know. Where's the 5? Here. Okay. And 6.
I know that from these 18th century paintings from the New World, where they would basically number them, and then behind the painting, sometimes below the painting, they would like write 1 is this fruit, or like 2 is the mixture of like a Spaniard and an indigenous woman, like where the numbers corresponded to some sort of text or description.
There's no information. You can't read it.
La paura de mandioca. Mandioca is a fruit. Like a root vegetable.
Mandioca, this.
It's really delicate.
And it's in a very good condition.
It's quite funny that the vitrine is called Hahn.
Hahn, it means like chicken.
Chicken, yeah. There's
It's
the icon of chicken here as well.
Chicken from Frankfurt.
And FFM
is short from Frankfurt. Yeah. So the chicken triumphs above the bird of paradise.
It's just our normal chickens. Bio.
Deboned.
So I will give you the data bank for you, and I think yours this one, this this is yours. And this is yours. Oh. So is there any particular information from the data bank that you find it interesting? Or not interesting or confusing?
Like I still don't know when they were made.
Well, how they were made?
When?
Okay.
Like it says when they were bought or acquired by the museum in different ways, whether donated or bought, but there's no date.
Do you think it's important to know the year when they are made? The production year?
I think so. I think it would be interesting for me to know if they were made in the last 50 years or like right at the beginning of the colonial time, for example. Like under what conditions they were acquired, not necessarily by the museum, but by the person who gave them to the museum.
It's very strange that it doesn't say the age of this object. That's
For some of them?
Isn't that interesting to make sense of an object, to know roughly when? But maybe it's for professionals. It's clear which sort of, because for example for this I would be completely lost whether it's 20th century or whether it's 300 years old or.
Sometimes it's the same situation with us who are so-called professionals, but it depends on the expertise on a certain field. I think maybe if we start to work on some objects we have never worked on before, like for me it would be with butter culture, from Western Indonesia, I would be an absolutely so-called amateur. Also my predecessor focused on it, and he would have seen an object and would have said, okay, that's this year. And sometimes it's really hard to determine, even if you are a professional. For example, in textiles from Indonesia, very old textiles are sometimes family heritage, and they are looking very fresh and quite new because they are cared for very well. But everyday cloth is worn every day, and
So it
is used every day, and it looks used, and maybe it's only 1 year, but it looks like it's 20, 30, 40 years old.
So I'm asking you about the difference between tourist object and other object, like why do you think you have these categories in mind?
I mean, I guess when I say tourist object, I mean almost like a generic aesthetic too. Also usually cheap materials, perhaps not so much attention to details. Do you know what I mean? Like those little things over there.
Which one?
The ones with the look like little flowers with white and pink.
Oh, this one.
Does that make sense? Like I saw them, like I thought, yeah, that's something that you buy maybe at a market. Also because of the material, you're like, that can't be gold. Like not at all. Or for example, these here, like I feel that's like a little souvenir you take from a foreign country, and I know for a fact, like I can still appreciate how like nicely done this one is and the attention to detail. Like the craftsmanship is really impressive, but it still seems like almost like a tourist object. And also, I mean, with this one, it's a matter of scale, sort of where the object loses its function just to look cute and decorative. But I wouldn't say that about all the objects here in this room.
But these are the objects that you will put in that
box.
In that box of tourist.
For example, I wouldn't put that one in that box.
Okay. Why do you think it's not tourist? It doesn't have a tourist value, or it's
hard. Well, first of all, because I really like it. So if I were a tourist and that were a tourist object, I would probably try to buy it.
Especially this bird of paradise and these things here, these are not actually objects which have come out of the context of the people who made it, but they were made for export. For the people like us now watching at it. So it's a little bit self-contained kind of thing. That something like this is in a collection which actually was made for other people to use as either as decoration for hats or as a memory for visit spent in Mexico or so. So that's not really some genuine thing the people there produced for themselves, but with a other target in mind already. So are they allowed to be in an anthropological exhibition? Because it doesn't say too much about the people which produced it, but what they thought about would be interesting for other tourists or cultures.
Yeah. I think I kind of made a difference between objects I looked at as I looked at as some kind of artwork, because when I looked at these two objects, for example, it wasn't even too, how would I say, present. Like, it wasn't even too interesting for me, I think, because I felt like I could not figure out how to use it. I was like, when I try to imagine anything about these objects, I would have to figure out how to use them. And when I look at artworks, I don't have to figure out how to use them. I can just look at them and I can just kind of read them. And I think that's right. And I feel comfortable with just trying to read them.
And the two categories that you
would be like artwork or instrument or something. Like,
And how can you define something as an artwork and as an instrument? Can you decide it from?
Yeah, I actually can't because I don't know anything about them. But I like from my point of view, like my eyes can see objects as artworks, some easier as the others, so I can make a decision.
It's a bit similar actually. So my first impression was always like, so which of these objects are pure art projects? They're just to beautify a house or whatever, and which of these objects I actually used, or what is it sort of? When I looked at this, for example, I thought, so is this someone putting on the wall to make his house more beautiful, or is it actually used for theater plays to play a horse rider or something like that? So that was my first impression on all this. But again, like Dirk, I had problems without the context, without knowing where it's from, or it's very difficult to make sense of it in a sense.
Yes.
Shall we move to our next plan, which if we create a system on how to make sense of this object, what will be the steps of recognizing or understanding this object? And so what will be the first one?
To compare it to what you already saw. Wanted to compare it to something from your culture. Like if somebody sees the trumpet, it's not trumpet, the drum. I think most of the people will recognize it as a drum.
To compare it from your own culture.
To try to fit it in, sort of. Like, I still think that it's quite important to know where it comes from.
Should it come before this or after this? Like to know where it comes from, or it's the same process?
Maybe before that, because when you know where it comes from, then you might be more able to find out what use it had. So to make this connection to what a thing like this could have been used to in our culture. So
I would make it step number 2.
You say it's step number 2.
Like, I think first
what is useful?
Like first what works, it's your visual perception of the thing. If you can tell something about it, it's already good. If you cannot tell anything, then you need some more information, which is like their origin. For example, the
something like, which is a prototypical drum, might be something totally different. It might be something you put in the grave with somebody or so. It was never used as a drum, maybe. So it has some symbolic functionality, because I think it's a little bit high to be a very nice to be used, actually.
Well, you could sit
There are
on a
bigger drums.
Yeah, you could sit somewhere and drum it.
So we can be easily misled by this trying to put it in our frame of ideas and in context. A pot which could be used for storing grain, could be an urn for the ashes of a deceased or so. And so this is really very, very, it could be misleading to make this the first step, to let this comparing to the culture you're from, make the first decision what it is, what kind of sense this object makes.
If I got you right, I've got the same problem as you, because I always think it, the way I look at an object depends on the object and it depends on me. So it depends on what I've already learned about anything I know, see again, or if I look at an object and I'm like, everything it is, I see the first time in my life, for example, that makes a huge difference. And so there is not like this one thing you could do first. Is it like, are you asking for that? Are you asking us for like some kind of a method you could always use to look at an object first, or just like something like a good idea or something like that? Yeah, then I think it's but I can't answer it. I think, well, I got this problem then. Yeah.
Because manual usually contains something that is very general, something that people doesn't need more time to understand, because it's something that should be quick and should be informative. Like, this is what you do. Like someone said about the instructions on IKEA, because you in IKEA instructions you don't need translations of context or location or time. You can build a cupboard during the day, afternoon, morning, when you're sad, when you're happy. It's something that should be universal. But I also start to think maybe we can also develop a different kind of manual that is very specific, that it contains points that cannot be replicated, and then it allows people to find its way, a different way. So it's not like manuals from 1, 2, 3, but it's compilations of starting points. What do you think?
It could be, if you see something that relates somehow to your culture, either in the material or in the function it might have, then you might start from the comparison. If you approach something that you totally don't know what it is, then you might start from the material part, or speculate where it comes from.
So I will put like 2 lines with familiar and what is unfamiliar? Like I'm infamiliar, unfamiliar. English. And how old is the object? What do you think? Something like this?
Well, it's more the unknown than the unfamiliar.
Unknown. Then you start to ask what kind of custom or rituals. Or it can also be.
I think this comes from both of them.
Okay.
Like in the end.
The usage.
The usage, yeah.
Yeah, the usage of this
The
object.
purpose of the object, yeah. I think it combines.
So it
That's the conclusion,
Yeah.
more or less. Everything else is not important, but what it was used for.
Okay. The usage of the object. And this will be where these two meet and kind of like
I would say so.
conclusion. Yeah.
It could also be quite rich or interesting just to imagine if the object could complete any of your own collections you got at home. Like if, and even if it's not a collection, if it's just relating to the form, anything, would you do you feel like could you put it together with something you've got in your flat, like what would it look like if you where would you put it in your flat, like for example, and what would it look like? Would it relate, like just from the form, would it relate with any decoration you already have, or like about the colors? Because I actually, when I go to museums and when I see paintings, I sometimes think, oh yeah, this one I'd like to have, and then I would put it there, like on my and this in the kitchen. Like, of course, it could never happen, but I love thinking about it. And I found myself once when I came home after visiting an exhibition, I kind of missed the artworks, like the paintings. I was like, oh, yeah, it's so sad I don't have them here because it's just a white wall, and that one would just perfectly fit there. Like, of course, it's just dreaming, but. This is just how the way they came to my mind. I wanted to own them because I found them so beautiful, for example.
The familiar and the unfamiliar. If you're reacting to objects in this way, it's to the first point you made. Is it familiar or is it not? But I think it's problematic that if you think about it in terms of would that fit my collection or would that fit my living room, then you're closer to sort of the purchaser's thought behind the object, which I think is a natural thing. Like I tended to do that when I saw this beautiful sort of container, so-called container, but I think that's problematic, that when you see these objects and your first impulse is closer to that of the colonial. Does that make sense? And therefore what I would suggest that we write is who owns, and who can or should own the objects, and that way you sort of thematize all the things you have mentioned without forcing people to like problematize or have a discussion. Just to ask sort of a four-parted question about ownership, past, present, and the possibility of a future.
You don't agree?
And so now we're discussing this object as part of life of other people in other contexts. Do you see this thing now also as part of our context, our presence, our existence here?
Like in this room?
Yeah, in this room or in this time?
Yeah, we have experienced them a little bit. So they became already a little bit more known. So next time I see something what reminds me of something here, I would again start to compare it with my own. I will compare it with my own experience, and today my experience was changed, so it becomes a new little layer.
So it adds.
It adds something.
Experience and reference point. Okay.
But I would always have a skeptic approach as well, whether the things I see are really representative for the culture, or it was just a thing of luck that somebody found this object, and I think this thing here is something unique, which is not a topos or so, which is some idea of some person and some comment of some person. So this is more an individualistic thing. It's has, in my opinion, nothing to do with a culture or so.
So it was just used by one man in one village.
Exactly.
And then this you don't know. I mean, this could be, you could go there and everybody has it in front of the house.
But how am I to judge? Just because I see this one object in a museum, am I really supposed to think that in Oceania every house has this kind of figure standing in front, or whether these souvenir things are something which the people produced out of themselves, or just because I knew the Western tourists, they like colorful thingies which look nicely handcrafted, and maybe at home they do abstract art or something like this. And then this is really just something which was produced because it was spoiled by exposure to the other cultures. So I don't trust museums 100%.